One single chassid who devotes his heart, mind, and soul to Torah and to bolstering Torah effects wonders in a large city.
My grandfather, Moshe Eliezer Kramer Halevi, who was born in Russia, in this small village of Kurinich, very poor village. This small village of Kurinich, which had maybe 700 Jews. There were 5 shuls, and 4 of them were Nusachari. In Russia, of course, Jews, people were being drafted in the army, and when he was of draftable age, they wanted to put him in the army. So he left, came to this country in 1895. He was successful here.
At the turn of the century, Moshe Eliezer Kramer arrives on the shores of the Golden Medina, penniless and alone, determined to build a better life for himself and his family. An old friend gives him a job in a pants factory.
After the death of his father in 1920, Yosef Yitzchak became the Rebbe. And one of the things that he did was, a couple of years later, he wrote my grandfather a letter to set up an organization called Agudas Chassedi Chabad, which still exists today and is the legal entity of Worldwide Lubavitch at 770. And that's exactly what he did.
You can say the Kramer's home was the first Chabad house.
So when my grandfather, Moshe Eliezer, died, my father, Chaim Zalman Kramer, took over as president of Agudas Chassedi Chabad. The headquarters, or the office, was in my father's business office. And as such, he and his brothers and others, of course, welcomed the Rebbe when he arrived in 29. If a big ship comes in with hundreds of people, he's just one of the passengers, and he has to wait his turn. You don't do that to Lubavitcher Rebbe. So they made my uncle make special arrangements so that he could be handled quickly and efficiently. They arranged, instead of the Rebbe coming to the dock with all these passages and being released and so on, they were able to arrange a tugboat would meet the ship while it's still in the harbor, not docked yet, and let him get off, go into the tugboat, and then come to shore that way, rather than go through the whole docking procedure. He did this touring. He needed money. And I have checks of the monies that my father wrote, because it's his signature, from the business, M.L. Kramer and Sons. They were in the pants business, and signed in the back by the Rebbe's signature.
The Kramers would host Farbrengens and Malav Malkers at their home.
In one of the Malav Malkas in 1929, in my Uncle Sam's house, and there was talking, which was silent motion. You couldn't hear that, but there was dancing. And the movies focused on this little young fella that was singing. And that was me, because my father had given me a shtuk to sing some nigun. So that was my first encounter. The Rebbe went to the White House to thank President Hoover, and my father went with him.
The previous Rebbe returns to Europe, and a few years later, World War II breaks out. The Chassidim in America did everything they could to save him.
The legal aspect of getting the Rebbe here from Poland, from Warsaw, because the government here, our government, didn't let any Jews in.
When they filled out the immigration form, one of the questions they asked was where he was going to stay.
They kept writing New York, because there was Agudas Chassedi Chabad in New York, right?
They succeeded in receiving a visa in 1940. The previous Rebbe arrived safely in the shores of the United States and was greeted by American jury.
There were a lot of people in there, and he made a statement right there that America is nicht anders, meaning there are still Jews here and that we could work with them. And one of the first things that he did, besides talking about this fact that he has to do this mission, was to set up an organization. It was called the Committee for the Furtherance of Jewish Education in 1940.
The National Committee for the Furtherance of Jewish Education was founded that year at the Rebbe's behest. Its principal mission at that time was to teach Jewish public school children about Judaism. And in the past 72 years, NCFJE has grown to offer over 40 different programs in education and social services. Today, the NCFJE runs many programs with the objective of providing fast, discreet, dignified service to all sectors of the community with our motto, an organization with a heart.
National committee really that supervises, and they are the instigators of all these wonderful programs. And the programs is what keeps everybody going and what keeps Jews Jews.
His impact would continue long after his passing, through the work of his children and their children and the children after them. It seems dedication to the community is in the Kramer DNA.